Okay, good morning, students. Am I audible? Am I audible and am I visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So let me share my PPT and just give me confirmation. Can you see my PPT? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Perfect.
sir.
Yes, perfect. Let us deep dive into the topic. Okay. So today's topic will be types of cells and tissues in the human body. So you already know we are eukaryotic organ. Our cells are eukaryotic. That means we are eukaryotes. So that means eukaryotes have the tendency of having multicellular architecture. All right. So prokaryotes means they are only single cell organisms. Where eukaryotes have this tendency of working together. It is not a single cell function, rather than many cells will work together as a tissue, as an organ, as a system, and we will get a very uh, higher level complicated animals or organisms can be exhibited by these eukaryotic cells. So eukaryotic cells are comparatively complex than prokaryotic cells. They have cell organelles, as you already know. They have defined nucleus, nuclear membrane, nuclear force. Everything is there, right? You already know everything about the eukaryotic cells. Now I want to tell some interesting aspects of eukaryotic cells and how these eukaryotic cells or prokaryotic cells evolved into eukaryotic cells, and how these eukaryotic cells became the dominant species on planet Earth. Okay, so let us see that, then we can go to the classification of tissues and etc. Okay, so I'm just keeping all these things. Okay, it will be boring if I'm discussing these things. This is a typical eukaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cell has all the cell organelles. It has nucleus, ribosomes, then Golgi apparatus, plasma membrane, mitochondria, lysosomes, then endoplasmic reticulum, rough endoplasmic, smooth endoplasmic, then vacuoles, everything of that. In general, nucleus will have DNA. DNA will have all the information. Then ribosomes will make proteins. Proteins will be made by the ribosomes, and those proteins will be matured in the Golgi apparatus. Then the overall cell energy will be derived from the mitochondria. Then the cellular architecture is maintained by cytoskeleton. Then the proteins that has been synthesized by the ribosomes will be stored in the endoplasmic reticulum. If there are more proteins stored, then it is called rough endoplasmic. If less proteins are stored, then it is called smooth endoplasmic. Then there are lysosomes. Lysosomes are the cellular digestive system. So in a cell, we have lysosomes, and lysosomes will digest the particles, and it will keep the cell healthy, and it will also enhance the further nutrition requirement to the cells. So this is basically everything about the cell. So this is a typical eukaryotic cell. Then I want to tell a story of how multicellular organisms came into the planet Earth. So in the beginning, we have single cell prokaryotic cells, and prokaryotic cells have realized they evolved to work together. So that is one of the important event that happened in the history. Okay, how multiple cells working together. That multicellular complexity is given rise by the arise of a new kind of cell called eukaryotic cells, and the beautiful story of evolution has initiated upon the birth of the eukaryotic cell. Now I want to show you a brief animation of how these eukaryotic cells have given the world that we know. Okay, the beauty started by the arise of these eukaryotic cells. So yes, these are the eukaryotic cells. Slowly they are evolving. Fish, they evolved into the land, reptiles, mammals, and it came into the humans. So all the story of evolution, what we know, is happened because of the eukaryotic cells. Without eukaryotic cells, today we might not existed. Still, the life on planet Earth might be, an invisible life. It might be at a cellular level, which is floating in the oceans. But because of arrays of these eukaryotic cells, the dominant life have evolved on planet Earth. So yes, the 4 billion years of evolution is a wonderful, a wonderful event to show us the things that happened in the past. And this is all because of eukaryotic cells. I want to tell again. Okay, so yes, I will show that in a slow motion. See how these eukaryotic cells are dividing. They made us preliminary cells, then we got parameciums, then we got even complicated life like sea anemones. Sea anemones are further divided into jellyfish, starfishes, and some of the sea anemones became annelids. Then they got to deuterostomes. They got to two digestive systems. They become fishes. Then slowly fishes are evolving. they keep on evolving into multiple species. They're just adopting into the thing. And some of the fishes came onto the land. Some of them become reptiles, amphibians, then aves, birds, and some of the reptiles started keeping eggs within the body, become mammals. And one group of these mammals became marsupials. Marsupials given all these mammal things, and one of the mammal became a primate, and from one of the ancestors of the primate, the human modern Homo sapiens has evolved. So such a wonderful story, such a wonderful events happen in the history just because of eukaryotic cells. So we need to appreciate the cell. Whenever we are studying eukaryotic cell, just keep this thing in mind, that eukaryotic cells given us a rise of this beautiful, complicated life organisms on planet Earth. All this is because of we should thank our eukaryotic cells. Okay, a wonderful event. Okay, even if you see the growth of an entire body is by a single cell. That means a single eukaryotic cell DNA has all the information to make a completely grown embryo, a completely grown up adult. Such a wonderful thing. Now we have trillions of cells in our body, and each and every one of the cell have the information to construct the whole body. What a beautiful thing. So the cells will slowly categorize themselves into 4 categories actually. So eukaryotic cells will sub-branch into 4 types. Okay, either they will go to neural cells, they may go to skeletal cells, they may go to blood cells, or they may go to some fat cells. So how these cells are classified, and how those classified further cells are further differentiating into the high level specific tissues, and how those tissues are working together to make a system, and how these systems are working together to keep us alive. So that is the story of these things. No matter whatever we are studying, everything is because at cellular level mechanisms. Okay, whenever we are studying heart, okay, heart it has its own branch called cardiology, but the heart working at a level of cell, a cardiac cell, how the cardiac cell is working, the health of the cells is important to see the overall output of the functional healthy output of any organism. So understanding the cells is the vital parameter to understand the medicine. No matter whatever drugs we are developing, those drugs will act at the cellular level. The drugs we are using, the therapies we are doing, or even yoga, whatever you say, exercise, everything, they all are enhancing the cellular ability. Okay, at a level of cell, these things are helping. If cells are healthy, we will be healthy. So reading cells is very important. Understanding the mechanism of cells and understanding the mechanism of tissues is the primary thing that we need to do in order to understand the complete medicine. Okay, we have a dedicated branch called cytology to study the cells actually. Okay, cytology is the base of the is a fundamental base of understanding life. Even if you go further, there is this molecular things, DNA, RNA, but yes, that is the fundamental base, the molecular level. But when we go to the middle world, that middle world, the cells are the primary dominant things. Okay, so yes, this is some introduction to cells. Then see here, the beautiful thing about developing of a human embryo, it all started with a single cell, a half cell. I can say half cell. Okay, in biology, when I say half cell, that means rather than having complete set of chromosomes, say for example, if it has 46 chromosomes, the chromosomes will split into 2. Okay, 23 chromosomes. That 23 chromosome containing cell is called as half cell, or it is called haploid stage, or they are also called as sex cells. Okay, so we have 2 types of sex cells. We have male cells and female cells. Male cells are called sperms, whereas female cells are called as ovum. So this both 23 chromosomes will merge together to make a single functional complete cell. Okay, that is a fertilized cell. Now this single functional fertilized cell will undergo further divisions, and it will be splitted into these 4 types of tissue categories, and it will make the entire architecture, the entire organ system, and the entire architecture of the human body. Now I want to tell one really interesting thing. So if you see the development of human embryo, It all starts with a fertilization, then it will go for cleavage, okay? Then it will go for some binding, then differentiation, cavitation. Cavitation is very important. That means, okay, now listen, we are deuterostomes. We are called as deuterostomes. That means we have two tubes. The organisms that have two tubes are called as deuterostomes. We have one tube for digestive system and we have one tube for nervous system. Okay, so this is called bilaminar disc formation. So from bilaminar disc formation, the upper cells will go for brain development and lower cells are going for the body development, body cavity developments. Okay, now the first organ that is developed within the embryo is not even brain or not even heart. The first organ it will develop will be a placenta. Now the placenta will start attaching to the mother's womb, because that is the first thing that a fetus should do. I can say fetal life as a parasitism. Okay, the first thing that a parasite must do is to obtain nutrition from the host. So here the embryo will start making this placenta, and placenta will get attached to the uterus. Now from this uterine wall, the placenta will start extracting the nutrients. Upon utilizing these nutrients, it will go for further division and it will end up with a complete life, a baby. So such a beautiful thing. Understanding embryology, the embryological development will give a deep insights on how the cells are further differentiating, further classifying, and further forming into an individual entities. Okay, a functional entities. Very beautiful thing. So this is about human embryology. Then yes, so the cells that have capability of differentiating into all types of cells, or these four tissues, a single cell that can able to differentiate into these four tissues, this cell is called as stem cell. To be precise, we have many types of stem cells. Okay, this particular stem cells is called totipotent stem cell. From totipotent stem cell, the meaning you can understand, it can able to totipotent, it can able to differentiate into all types of cells in the body. That's why it is called as totipotent stem cell. From this totipotent stem cell, we will get four types of tissues. So the four types of tissues or cells that will be developed by these stem cells are intestinal cells, liver cells, cardiac cells, nerve cells, blood cells, and muscle cells. Now these muscle cells will further differentiate into muscular tissues. Blood cells will further differentiate into red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Nerve cells will further differentiate into neurons, glial cells, oligodendritic cells, microglial cells, etc. Then cardiac cells will be further differentiated to make a functional heart. Then liver cells will, hepatocytes will further differentiate to make a liver. Intestinal cells will further differentiate into complete your gut system. Okay, yes, starting from esophagus to anus, everything will be further differentiated by this intestinal cells. So now let me further simplify this stem cell classification. Let me further classify the cellular tissues into four types. Okay, here I given a detailed differentiation of stem cells, but let me make it even more generalized things. Okay, let me generalize it even simpler things. Yeah, so we have these four types of cells: muscle cells, neural cells, bone cells, blood cells. Okay, now see, from a single stem cell, that single one cell, it can able to make all the systems that we need. Isn't it? I want to show you one picture. So isn't it life wonderful? All these cells, they will further differentiate within a matter of some 9 months. Within 9 months, for some animals, it will be just 90 days. Within a matter of days, a single cell will be replicated into trillions of cells with their own functions, their own business, their own activities, and they will give this arise of this baby turtle or baby humans. Such a wonderful thing. All these miracles happening at a level of cells. Cells are a living example that a miracle happens. It's beyond understanding. The complexity of a single cell is something extraordinary that has happened on this planet Earth by a random physical things. I'm telling, no divine intervention is there. All the cells are just obeying the laws of physics, and we got such wonderful outcome, which is a life. Very beautiful thing. Okay, we need not to give any credit to any other outside persons. Okay, this is all happening automatically on planet Earth within the laws of physics. Such a wonderful thing. And we have only 4 laws in physics, actually only four laws. You know that? Gravitational law, then a weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force, and electromagnetic force. Only these four forces are sufficient enough to make life possible on anywhere on this universe. Our universe is just governed by these four forces. So yes, if life is possible on planet Earth, then it is possible in many other places on the universe. So yes, this is a really interesting view to see the life. Okay, yeah. Such a beautiful being came into this world. So it may live next 100 to 200 years happily on this planet. And all these things happen at the level of cells. Very beautiful things. So yeah, organization of cells and tissues. So cell tissues will be organized like this. A group of cells will make a tissue, a group of tissues will make an organ, a group of organs will make an organ system, and a group of organ systems will make a complete living organism, right? So cells are the smallest unit that can carry out life activities. Okay, so cells are the fundamental unit of life. Okay, so cells will make into tissues. Tissues will make organs, organ systems, and organs. Okay, so now let us see the important tissues that we have in the human body. The classification of tissues in the human body. Okay, so definition of tissue. So the basic definition of a tissue is a collection of interconnected cells that perform a similar function within an organism. In other words, it is a group of cells working together mainly inside an organ. Okay, keep in mind all the cells that are working for a single function can be stated as a tissue. If in a tissue, if different cells are doing different functions, then it won't be a tissue, it will be an organ. Okay, a tissue basic definition will be all the cells within that particular tissue must function for a single agenda. Then only it can be classified as a tissue. If it is doing different functions, then it will be an organ. A group of tissues will make an organ, keep in mind. Okay, so this is the basic definition of tissue. Then yeah, this is the simplest classification of tissues in human body. So we have four types of tissues. We have epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. Only these four tissues we have. We have epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous tissue. Epithelial tissue is responsible for making the outer layer of any organ. It can be a skin, it can be a outer layer of any organ. Okay, like a pleural layer of lungs, pericardial layer of heart, or meninges of brain, detractor muscle of urinary bladder, or so yeah. So our organs will be outer layer coated by epithelial cells. Okay, so epithelial cells are like a polyvinyl cover. Okay, so every organ is sealed in these covers. Okay, now we have a problem with covers. What is the problem with cover? Covers have tendency, they're fragile. Covers can cut down, they can be tear apart. So most of the wear and tear cells are epithelial cells. So that is why epithelial cells are there is a likeliness of shedding of epithelial cells compared to other cells in the body, because epithelial cells are the outermost cells and those cells can easily shed. So that's why we can easily detect epithelial cells in many body fluids. That's a one story. Okay, then we have many other further classification of epithelial cells that I will say later. Then coming to the connective tissue. So what is the meaning of this connective tissue? Connective tissue, as the name suggests, it is trying to connect something. It is trying to connect any two tissues. That can be stated as a connective tissue. The tissue that is trying to connect any two things can be stated as a connective tissue. Let me give you one best example. We have a epithelial tissue like a skin, and we have a inside blood vessels. In between skin and blood vessels, we have a fat.
Connective. Yes,
we have a fat deposit, a fat layer. Now, I can say that this fat layer is a type of connective tissue, because fat is connecting two organs or two tissues. So that can be stated as a connective tissue. Then we have best example will be
blood.
Okay, blood is connecting everything in the body. Okay, that is why blood is called as fluid connective tissue. It is a connective tissue in a state of fluid. That is why blood is called a fluid connective tissue. Like this, we have many types of connective tissues, not only blood and fat. We have other things like
lymph. areolar,
lymph,
adipose,
adip-
areolar
all
connective tissue,
this adipose and all
ligaments,
flat.
tendons.
Ligaments, tendons. So we have many types of connective tissues, cartilage, bones. Okay, the cartilage layer
Yes,
of
sir.
bones. All these are connective tissues. Okay, then coming to the muscular tissue. So as we already know, muscular tissue, wherever there is movement, either it is a voluntary movement or involuntary movement, this movement is exerted by a muscular tissue. Muscle is a combination of a neural cell and a base cell. A base cell is modified with some neurons embedded within, and it have the tendency to move. Such cells are called as muscular tissues, and this muscular tissue are of two types. Okay, voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles. Now, further, this voluntary and involuntary muscles are further divided into smooth muscles and
Cardiac muscle, skeletal.
skeletal muscle. Very good. Smooth muscles and skeletal muscle. Now we have one separate branch of skeletal muscle, and they are called as the cardiac muscles. The difference between cardiac and skeletal muscle is presence of some intercalated, presence of some branchings. So there is some
Yes, sir.
tissue level, morphological differentiations to identify which is cardiac tissue and which is muscular tissue, which is smooth muscles. Okay, so yeah, this is all about the muscular tissues. So muscular tissues, say for example, if I take voluntary muscles are the muscles that will be under
Under
our
our
control.
control.
Whenever
Yes,
we
sir.
are thinking of them, we can move them. Like all these things are voluntary muscles. And what are the examples of involuntary muscles? Involuntary muscles will be, best example will be your
The
digestive.
movement of esophagus,
Yeah.
peristalsis.
Peristalsis movement. You will feel that, whenever you are hungry, you will get sound from your stomach, right? That is because your intestine is moving in a peristaltic, like a wave-like motion. That will give us that, that sounds. Okay. So they are
Yes,
smooth
sir.
muscles and they are moving involuntarily. Okay, they are involuntary muscles. Then last and final will be your neural tissue, nervous tissue. Yeah, there is one more connective tissue. There are glial cells in the neurons. That is different story. Anyway, in nervous tissue, what is the primary job of neuron? Neuron will transmit
Conduction
signals.
of impulses.
Very
Yes,
good.
sir.
Conduction of impulses or
Impulses.
transmission of electric signals among the cells. Okay, they will give electrical input to the muscles, either involuntary or voluntary. Everything is movement is regulated by our neurons. Okay, they are all connected to the central nervous system, which is the brain. So that's why neurons are further classified into two types. The neurons that are present in the brain, the processing CPU, that can be stated as a central nervous system, and the neurons that are connecting central nervous system to the periphery, like our hands, those neurons are called
PNS.
peripheral nervous systems.
Nervous system.
Say, like you can say CPU is a brain, whereas a computer, monitor, keyboard, mouse, digital pens, etc., all this can be stated as a peripheral PNS, connected wires to the CPU, right? So yeah, these are the four types of tissues we have in the body: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, nervous tissue. Okay, so yes, connective tissue, the job we know, epithelial tissue we know, muscular tissue we know, and nervous tissue we know. So a description and the location. So nervous tissue, excitable cells specialized for rapid communication with other cells. Okay, that is the primary function of nervous tissue. So the location of nervous tissue, including brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Then muscles, muscular tissue. Muscular tissue are elongated, excitable cells specialized for contraction. They are also excitable cells. Excitable means capability of transmitting electrical cells, electrical activity is called excitable cells. And if they have the tendency to contract upon getting electrical impulse, then they are called as muscular cells. Then these muscular cells we have in many types. The location includes skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, smooth muscles in the intestine. Okay. Then we have connective tissue. Connective tissue, connective tissue, it have matrix of. Okay, we have further three types of connective tissues. Okay, matrix, then base, and we have one more thing I forgot. Okay, these three together will make a connective tissue. So lots of matrix supports, protects our connective tissue. So some of the location of connective tissue include tendons, ligaments, blood, cartilage, etc. Lymph are the few locations of connective tissue. And last and final is our epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue is a little, it's a type of matrix, but it's not a pure matrix. It will cover the outer surface and linings of either inner organs or the outer side things. Okay, so they are the epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue present in epidermis, lining of digestive tract, liver, and other glands have this epithelial tissue. So this is all about the tissues. Maybe in our next lecture, let us go for further understanding individual tissues in detail, like what are the classification of epithelial tissue, classification of connective, muscular, and nervous tissue. We can see in the further lectures. Okay, so this is all about the tissues. So like I have given here types of epithelial tissue. We have squamous, cuboidal, columnar, stratified, pseudostratified, non-stratified. Then we have these things. Okay, vascular, avascular, like that. We have many types of epithelial tissue. Then we have many types of connective tissue, cells, fibers, ground substances. I said that we have 3 types. Then we have many types of muscular tissue, types of nervous tissue, glial cells. All these things we will see in the next lecture. Okay, so a quick summary of today's lecture. So in today's lecture, we discussed in detail about the cells and the tissues and the importance of eukaryotic cells and their involvement in the evolution, right? So I hope that I have achieved my outcome of today's lecture. You today, by attending today's lecture, you can able to demonstrate cell and cell organelles, tissues and organ systems in the human body, and the learning outcomes you may already achieved it. You can able to identify different types of cells and present in the human body. You can able to identify the 4 primary tissues. You can even go for identification of epithelial connective. This I will discuss in the next. Okay, so these are the contents we discussed. We discussed about the structure of cell, human embryology, organization of cells and tissues, types of cells, location and function of each cells, and we even discussed about the types of tissues and their functions and their locations, right? So this is what we discussed in today's lecture. We discussed about all the cells, cellular organelles, their functions in brief. Then we discussed about the importance of cells in the evolution, their beautiful things. See how beautiful this concept is, how the cells are keep on evolving through time to become complicated organisms, starting from a single cell to amoeba to paramecium to sea anemones to fishes to amphibians to reptiles to aves, birds, and lastly we got this mammals. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful events happened because of cells at cellular level, and it is all because of arrays of our eukaryotic cells, especially. Such a beautiful thing happened. You just learning is not only about understanding the facts, but learning is about appreciating our life, our ecosystem, why we are living. We should appreciate the past. We should appreciate the hard work that happened in the history. Then only we can able to yeah, that is the holistic education in my term. Education is not always about a piece of paper and writing something and getting marks. That is not education. The true learning is something which we are appreciating the nature, the history. Yeah. So Steve was saying that what are the 2 types of cells? We have prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Steve. And Navjot asking, please share today's PPT in the group. Definitely, I will share this PPT. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Mr. Raman.
Sir, as it was mentioned in the this PPT that these 4 tissues are primary tissues: epithelial, connective, and so what are the examples of secondary tissue?
Okay, the tissues that are associated to the primary are called secondary tissues. Say, for example, we have a liver. Liver is a tissue. Okay.
Yes,
To
sir.
this liver, we have a gallbladder. Gallbladder can be stated as a secondary tissue supporting the primary tissue. Got it right?
So gallbladder is also an organ. It is made up of connective also.
Oh, very good. Then you understood my thing. Then I will give you a best answer. Pancreas. Pancreas looks like a single tissue, but pancreas is further divided into 2 types of cells: alpha cells and beta cells. Alpha cells are responsible for pancreatic juice secretion, whereas the beta cells are responsible for the insulin secretion. But both of them are present in a single tissue. Hence, these 2 individual entities, alpha cells and beta cell, the part of the alpha cells and beta cells, that part of the pancreatic tissue can be stated as a secondary tissue. Okay. So that depends upon how we defining it, depending upon the circumstances, and maybe in my next lecture I will give you a definition of secondary tissue. Okay, then you will get some idea. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
That is a good question. Yeah. Any more questions, students? So I guess I have cleared all your doubts. Can I end the session, students?
Yes, sir. Sir, we have also the next class at 11:20 of physiology. You will take that class also.
Yes, I will meet you
Okay,
at 11:30, 11:20. Okay.
20.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you very much, students. You all can leave. Yeah. You can leave, students.